My girlfriend took videos of me crying and sent them to her group chat. So I sent them to her boss and she lost everything she bragged about. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've always worn my heart on my sleeve. I never thought I'd be the type of person to get blindsided by someone I loved, but here I am. This all started about 2 years ago when I met her. She was magnetic, confident, and had this laugh that made everyone around her feel lighter. I fell in love fast, maybe too fast, but I didn't care. For the first time in a long while, I felt like someone truly saw me. We moved in together 6 months into the relationship, and everything seemed perfect. I'd come home from work, exhausted, and she'd be there with dinner, lights dimmed, music soft in the background. We'd sit on the couch, me venting about my day, her listening intently, nodding, asking questions. I trusted her completely, even the parts of me I hated. My anxiety, my insecurities, the way I cried over little things when I felt overwhelmed. I thought she loved me for all of it. But even in those first months, little things began to creep in. She'd sometimes laugh just a little too loud when I tripped over my words. I remember one night I started crying quietly after an argument about money. She didn't hug me right away. She pulled out her phone instead, saying, "Hold on, I want to show my friend something funny." I brushed it off. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was just a joke. I mean, she had never hurt me before, right? We spent hours together, cooking, watching movies, planning trips. I told her my dreams, my fears, everything. And she responded with attention, with affection, with smiles that made me feel safe. I was completely vulnerable, completely trusting. Then, one evening, while I was in the shower, my phone buzzed nonstop. I stepped out, towel wrapped around me, and saw multiple notifications from her friend's group chat, all laughing at a video of me, crying, completely exposed, completely unaware. My stomach dropped. My chest tightened. I froze, and that's when I realized she hadn't just captured a moment of vulnerability. She had shared it with everyone. I stared at my phone, numb. My own tears felt heavier now, mixed with anger, disbelief, and a creeping sense of humiliation. How could someone I trusted so completely take my most vulnerable moment and turn it into entertainment for other people? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, but my head was spinning with questions I couldn't yet answer. When she walked in, hair slightly damp from the shower steam, she looked at me with that same smile I used to adore. "Hey, what's wrong?" she asked casually, like nothing had happened. I held up my phone. "Explain this. Why are there videos of me crying? In your group chat?" My voice shook more than I wanted it to. She laughed a little too easily, tossing her hair back. "Oh, I thought it was funny. You were being so dramatic. Everyone needed a laugh." Her shrug stung worse than the videos themselves. I opened my mouth, but she cut me off. "Relax, babe. You worry too much." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in the pit of my stomach told me this wasn't a one-time mistake. Over the next few days, subtle things kept happening. She would mimic my insecurities in front of her friends, laughing when I flinched. She shared small, private details about me like they were gossip, not part of a loving relationship. Each time I told myself it's fine. I'm just overreacting. She doesn't mean harm. Then, one evening, scrolling through her phone while she showered, I saw more clips. More moments I'd never wanted anyone to see. And worse, she'd captioned them with cruel little jokes, boasting about how easily she could manipulate me. I felt my trust shatter piece by piece. I confronted her again, voice low but trembling. "Are you serious? You actually think it's funny to embarrass me?" She smirked, leaning against the doorway, and said, "You're so sensitive. Lighten up. Everyone does stuff like this." That's when I realized something terrifying. What I thought was a loving relationship was slowly turning into a minefield. I was walking on eggshells, and I didn't even know it yet. And in that moment, I started wondering, how far would she go if I ever really got in her way? After that night, I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. Every laugh, every just kidding moment, every time I had confided in her without hesitation, it all felt like a trap. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep properly. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened. The humiliation gnawed at me in ways I hadn't expected. It wasn't just embarrassment anymore. It was betrayal so sharp it felt like it had cut through my very sense of self. I tried talking to her again, hoping for even a shred of remorse. "Why would you do this? Don't you get how much this hurts?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. She tilted her head, eyes flashing that mix of amusement and annoyance. "I don't know why you're acting like this is some huge deal. It's just a video. People laugh. You laugh at stuff too, don't you?" Her words hit like a slap. She refused to acknowledge the pain she had caused, dismissing it as if my feelings were overblown. I started noticing changes in myself. I walked into social situations expecting people to judge me, wondering who had seen those videos and laughed behind my back. At work, I'd catch myself hesitating to speak up in meetings, remembering the way she had made my vulnerabilities public. I felt small, exposed, powerless. My friends tried to comfort me, but even their reassurances couldn't erase the weight of that betrayal. One evening, scrolling through my phone late at night, I discovered more videos she had shared. Some I didn't even remember existing. The captions were worse this time, mocking me in ways I didn't think she was capable of. That's when the humiliation turned into rage. I clenched my fists, my heart hammering, and whispered to myself, "You think this is funny? You're going to regret it." But even as anger surged, a dark knot of sadness settled in. How had I been so blind? How had I given someone so much of myself, only to have it weaponized against me? I felt completely alone, even in my own apartment, the walls suddenly pressing in with every memory of her laughter. And then, my phone buzzed again, another notification from her friend's group chat. I couldn't take it anymore, so I finally reached out to my closest friends. My hands were shaking as I texted them, pasting screenshots, explaining everything. I wanted someone, anyone, to tell me I wasn't overreacting, that what she did wasn't normal. The responses were a mix. Some told me to let it go, that revenge would make things worse, while others were livid on my behalf, insisting she needed to be confronted. Hearing them say my feelings were valid was both comforting and terrifying. I remember sitting on my bed that night, my apartment dark except for the glow of my phone screen, reading every supportive message. But even with friends on my side, a pit of dread remained. How many people had seen those videos? How many had laughed at me? And the worst thought, was she still sharing them? Laughing, thinking she was untouchable? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was powerless to stop her. Then, late one evening, while scrolling through social media aimlessly, I found it. A screenshot she'd sent to someone influential, casually bragging about the videos, the way I had cried, and how easy it was to manipulate me. The words burned into my chest. "He's such a soft little mess, it's hilarious. Can't believe he trusts me." I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't just her friends laughing anymore. Someone outside our circle had seen my most private, vulnerable moments. I tried confronting her again, voice trembling. "You're still sending these? You're still bragging about me?" She laughed, tossing her hair, as if my outrage was nothing more than a mild inconvenience. "You worry too much. People love a little drama. It's fun." I realized in that moment just how deep this went. It wasn't just thoughtless cruelty. It was deliberate, manipulative, and escalating. Every instinct in me screamed that this wasn't going to end unless I did something. I lay there that night, staring at the ceiling, heart racing, hands trembling. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore, but the thought of what I might do next made my chest tighten even more. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a dangerous idea began to form, a thought that I hadn't dared entertain before. I thought things couldn't get any worse. I was wrong. It was a quiet Thursday night when I got a message that froze me in place. Someone from her work, someone I barely knew, had sent me a screenshot. My stomach dropped as I read it. She had forwarded the videos not just to friends but to her colleagues and even her boss. Every single humiliating clip, with captions mocking me and boasting about how easily she could manipulate me. My heart pounded, my chest tight, and I could barely breathe. This wasn't just embarrassment anymore. This could ruin her career, and worse. I felt sick realizing just how far she was willing to go for attention and control. I sat there, staring at my phone for what felt like hours, The apartment silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I kept rereading the message, half in disbelief. Why would someone do this? Why would she risk everything, her reputation, her job, just to make me look small? The thought that this had been planned, not impulsive, hit me harder than any video ever could. I tried to reach her, voice trembling when I called. "What the hell, are you serious? You sent them to your boss?" I could hear her laughing lightly like she hadn't just crossed every line imaginable. "Relax, it's not a big deal. It's just a little fun. People exaggerate everything." My blood ran cold. A little fun. My private pain was her entertainment, and now it had seeped into her professional life, into people who had power over her. I realized this wasn't just her being careless. It was reckless, arrogant, and cruel, and I was more exposed than ever, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. I couldn't stop shaking. The betrayal I thought was private had exploded into a world I couldn't control. Anger mixed with fear, humiliation with a growing sense of urgency. I needed to do something, but I also knew any move could escalate things further. And that's when the thought hit me, slow and deliberate. Maybe I didn't have to wait for her to ruin me anymore. Maybe I could take control. I sank into the couch, head in my hands, staring at the carpet like it could swallow me whole. My chest ached, my stomach churned, and for the first time I truly felt powerless. I had trusted her completely, shared every secret, every fear, every vulnerable moment, and she had weaponized it. Every laugh she shared at my expense, every mocking caption, every casual boast to her friends and now her colleagues, it all hit me at once. I felt small, humiliated, exposed, and utterly alone. I tried talking to her again, voice barely steady. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Sending these to your boss, people who could fire you? Do you even care?" She leaned back, smirking, scrolling her phone. "Oh, come on. You're dramatic. It's not that serious. Stop acting like a baby." Her words cut sharper than any knife. The arrogance, the lack of remorse made my stomach twist. It wasn't just betrayal. It was complete disregard for anyone's feelings but her own. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every conversation, every laugh, every time I had believed she loved me. Doubts gnawed at me. Was it ever real? Did she ever care? I thought about confronting her boss, but fear stopped me. Fear that I'd look vindictive. Fear that it would spiral further out of control. Fear that I might finally lose myself in this mess. I even questioned myself. Was I overreacting? Was I imagining the malice? But no, my hands shook as I reread the screenshots. The captions were cruel, deliberate, mocking. Every ounce of trust I had was shattered. I couldn't eat, couldn't think straight, and my confidence had crumbled. For the first time, I felt like I had nothing left to protect myself. I sat alone in the dark, apartment silent except for the faint hum of my phone notifications. Each buzz made my heart jump, terrified another video had surfaced somewhere else. And as I stared at the ceiling, chest tight, a thought slithered into my mind, unbidden but persistent. Maybe I didn't have to stay a victim anymore. Maybe I could turn this around, but how? And what would it cost me if I did? I started being obsessive, the kind of obsessive that used to scare me when I saw it in other people. I saved every message, screenshot, and video, filed them into a folder on my laptop with names like Evidence U01, Evidence 02. I copied timestamps, who forwarded what, and even printed a few things because seeing ink on paper made it feel real instead of a fever dream. At night, I replayed her smug reactions in my head and cataloged the moments where she'd turned my pain into a punchline. Each entry tightened something cold and focused inside me. Friends gave me different advice. "Confront her publicly," one said. "Call the lawyer," another muttered. My oldest friend, Amir, sat me down and said, "You can either be the guy who walks away or the guy who takes his life back. Pick which one you want to be." It felt like being handed a blunt instrument and instructions at the same time. Part of me wanted to be noble, to rise above it. Part of me wanted her to feel the exact humiliation she'd given me. Both impulses were loud and honest and terrifying. I ran through scenarios in my head. Block her, move out, delete everything, never speak of it again. Or this was darker and steadier, send the videos to her boss with a calm, factual message. Timestamps, context, proof she'd been sharing private videos of me and bragging about manipulating me. I imagined her face the moment the boss read it. I imagined the slow crumble of the confident little world she'd built around herself. But I also imagined the fallout for me. People calling me petty, friends questioning my motives, my own conscience nagging at the edges. For 3 days I sat on the decision, like a man perched on a ledge deciding whether to jump. I rehearsed the message a dozen times, each version colder, clearer, less about revenge and more about truth. The night I finally opened my laptop, fingers hovering above the send key, my heart hammered so loud I could barely hear the quiet apartment. I took one final breath, and my finger moved toward the mouse. I don't even remember exhaling before I hit send. One moment my finger hovered, trembling. The next the email was gone, a trail of attachments following it like little bombs about to detonate. I sat frozen at my desk, laptop screen glowing in the dim apartment. My heart pounded in my ears so loud it drowned out the hum of the fridge. For a second, I thought I might vomit. The email was simple, cold, factual, stripped of rage. I attached every screenshot, every clip, every timestamp. I explained that the videos were recorded and distributed without my knowledge, that I was humiliated publicly and privately. I didn't ask for revenge, didn't threaten legal action. I just laid the truth out like evidence on a courtroom table. For hours, nothing happened. I stared at my phone until my eyes blurred. Then, around midnight, I saw the first notification. Her boss. We need to talk first thing tomorrow morning. A second later, her boss. This is a serious matter. I could picture her face reading those words, the way her perfect little world might be cracking. She came home late, phone glued to her ear, pacing the kitchen. "What did you do?" she hissed when she finally hung up, her voice trembling, not with sadness, but with fear. "Did you seriously email my boss?" Her hands shook, but her eyes were still defiant. "I told the truth," I said quietly, though my heart was hammering like I'd just committed a crime. "Everything you did to me. They needed to know." She stared at me for a long moment, like she couldn't recognize me anymore, then stormed off, slamming the bedroom door. In the silence that followed, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Not revenge exactly, but the power of no longer being silent, of not being her punchline anymore. Still, beneath the surge of relief was a gnawing unease, because I knew tomorrow wouldn't just be her reckoning. It would be mine, too. The next morning was electric. My phone buzzed constantly, but it wasn't mine that mattered anymore. It was hers. I imagined her walking into her office, phone in hand, heart racing, trying to explain herself to her boss, colleagues whispering behind closed doors. The evidence was there, clear and undeniable. I could almost hear the shattering of her perfect little world. Then the messages started coming in. Screenshots from her coworkers, forwarded conversations, bewildered texts from people who couldn't believe she had been bragging about private videos of me. One of them said, "I can't believe you thought this was okay. This is insane." My chest tightened, a mix of satisfaction and disbelief. She had always acted untouchable, but now the cracks were glaring. Her friends' group chat went silent, or at least the playful teasing I had seen before. I could see the shift in tone from casual fun to panic. She was scrambling, trying to delete posts, apologize, cover tracks, but the truth had already spread like wildfire. Every brag, every mocking caption, every casual dismissal of my feelings was now her undoing. I remember staring out my window, the city quiet in the early morning haze, and feeling a strange mix of vindication and unease. Part of me wanted to celebrate, to feel the rush of having the tables turned. But another part of me knew the cost. She would fight back, she might try to twist the story, and my own life might get tangled in her fallout. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message, this one from her boss, confirming a meeting she had been called into immediately. I felt the tension spike, a knot in my stomach tightening. The consequences were unfolding in real time. And just like that, her confident, bragging persona, the one that had caused me so much pain, was starting to crumble before my eyes. But I knew this wasn't over yet. How she reacted next would determine everything. By the time she got home that evening, the tension in the apartment was suffocating. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, hands clasped, watching her as she walked in, shoulders hunched, eyes darting around like she was trying to read my thoughts. The smugness she used to wear like armor was gone, replaced by panic, frustration, and disbelief. "Why are you just sitting there?" she snapped, voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. Did you really send them?" Her words trembled with anger, but I noticed something else beneath it. Fear. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm. "Yes, I sent them. All of them. To your boss. To your colleagues. Everything." She froze, mouth opening, closing, like she was searching for a lie that would stick. You can't do that. That's insane. I didn't think you'd—" Her words fell apart like crumbling paper. I leaned forward, meeting her gaze steadily. "You thought it was funny to humiliate me? You thought it was harmless. But it wasn't. You chose to cross every line, and now you're facing the consequences." She recoiled slightly, a flicker of panic flashing across her face. I didn't mean—" I cut her off. "It doesn't matter what you meant. Your actions spoke louder than words. You took my trust, my vulnerability, and turned it into your entertainment. Do you understand how that feels?" Her silence was deafening. The room seemed to shrink around us, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down. I felt a quiet satisfaction, not in hurting her, but in finally saying it aloud, finally standing up for myself. She turned away, biting her lip, realizing that nothing she could say would undo the humiliation or repair the bridges she had burned. I watched her struggle, and for the first time, I felt seen, not just by her, but by myself. And in that tense silence, I realized she had lost her arrogance, her control, her world of carefully curated power. But what happened next, what I'd do with this victory, would determine whether this was justice or just another game. I sat alone later that night, apartment quiet except for the faint hum of the city outside, and let myself breathe for the first time in weeks. The adrenaline had faded, leaving a mix of exhaustion, relief, and an unexpected clarity. I replayed everything in my head, the videos, her arrogance, the planning, the confrontation. For so long, I'd felt small, powerless, humiliated. Now, for the first time, I felt like I had taken back control of my own story. Friends reached out the next day, checking in, offering support, sharing small victories. Messages from coworkers confirming that she had faced the consequences. Texts from friends congratulating me for standing up for myself. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, about reclaiming the dignity she had tried to strip from me. Every confirmation of her downfall felt like a weight lifting from my shoulders. I thought about the way I had allowed myself to be vulnerable, and the sting of betrayal was still there, sharp, raw, but tempered with perspective. I realized that being hurt so deeply had also shown me my own strength. I could survive humiliation, deception, and manipulation, and emerge stronger on the other side. Even she, who had once felt untouchable, was now facing the fallout of her actions, forced to reckon with the person she had shown the world to be. It wasn't petty revenge that mattered. It was truth, accountability, and the restoration of boundaries I had let be crossed for too long. That night, I finally let myself sleep without the knot of anxiety pressing against my chest. I felt lighter, freer, and strangely empowered. I knew I would never allow anyone to weaponize my vulnerabilities again. And in that quiet, I understood something important. The real power wasn't in her downfall. It was in reclaiming my own peace, my own story, and my own life. I smiled softly, thinking about the future. A life where I was in control, where my trust was sacred, and where betrayal couldn't define me anymore. And somewhere deep down, I knew that this was just the beginning of truly valuing myself again. Weeks passed, and life slowly began to settle into a rhythm that felt mine again. The chaos she had caused, the embarrassment, the humiliation, the constant anxiety, had faded into a kind of memory that no longer held power over me. Friends joked with me about the ordeal, but their laughter was comforting rather than cruel. I had survived it all, and for the first time in months I felt safe in my own skin. Her world, by contrast, had fractured. She lost opportunities at work, her reputation among colleagues took a hit, and the friends who once laughed with her at my expense now kept their distance. I won't lie. Part of me felt vindicated, seeing her arrogance crumble, realizing that she had finally encountered consequences she hadn't anticipated. But it wasn't glee that filled me. It was relief. Relief that the toxicity no longer had a hold on my life. I spent time reflecting on everything I had learned. How crucial it is to protect your boundaries. How quickly trust can be weaponized. And how important it is to stand up for yourself even when it scares you. I started rebuilding my confidence, focusing on friends, hobbies, and work, taking joy in the small things I had forgotten during the storm. Occasionally, memories of her would flicker. Her smirk, the way she mocked me, the panic in her eyes when confronted, but they no longer triggered despair. Instead, they reminded me that I had grown stronger, smarter, and more resilient. I had faced betrayal, humiliation, and manipulation, and I had come out on top. One night, sitting by the window with a quiet apartment around me, I realized something. The power I had lost to fear, shame, and self-doubt had returned to me. I was free. Not just from her, but from the weight of letting someone else define my worth. I smiled, thinking about the future. A life of respect, self-trust, and control over my own story. She had lost the power she thought she owned. And I had gained something far more valuable. Peace, clarity, and the knowledge that I could survive anything. And as I finally drifted off to sleep that night, I knew I had reclaimed not just my dignity, but my life, and no one could ever take that from me.